Hello everybody and welcome to today's board game review and gameplay demo for Fetus Feud. Before I get started, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at all my various social media pages as well as my Patreon page. On all of those you'll be able to interact with myself and my channel in all sorts of really cool ways. Now, Fetus Feud is a game that is coming to Kickstarter, so be sure that you take a look in the description below for a link to the campaign once it starts. The creators of the game were nice enough to send me a copy so that I can give you guys my opinion about what I think about the game, how it plays, all that kind of stuff, everything I normally do on these videos. So this is a card game for anywhere between 2 and 5 players that plays between 10 and 20 minutes, where you are trying to be the first one born. And that said, you are trying to collect as many contraction cards as you possibly can. Sounds pretty interesting, right? Well, we're going to get started right now with what this game is similar to. As far as similarities are concerned, there are two major ones that I wanted to talk about. First and foremost is Exploding Kittens. In this game, like in Exploding Kittens, you have attack cards, you have defense cards, you're playing them constantly all around the table, and then you have cards that are essentially inevitable and eventually will make you lose. Now in the case of Fetus Feud, it's kind of nice because you've got the one card that essentially ends the game and you just see who wins, as opposed to in Exploding Kittens where you get one and then you're just out of that round. So you don't have that player elimination aspect, but in terms of the actual gameplay progression, very, very similar. The second game that I wanted to talk about was Cards Against Humanity. Now the fact is, this is a game called Fetus Feud. You are babies who are trying to be born. You have art that involves people, babies doing strange things with umbilical cords. It is just right on the border of being kind of offensive. And that's why I wanted to pick Ka, because it's one of those games where you can get a group that finds it absolutely completely hilarious and a ton of fun and it's really goofy and it's a great time, or you can have people who are just like, this is really disgusting. And essentially I have met both types of people. So that's really something that you have to take into account before you play a game like this. Even though you have this art, it's really adorable, it's really cutesy, the puns are hilarious. I mean, in Ka you have that to an extent, but for this game they really tried to toe that line and did a reasonably good job at it. But that said, you're going to see that and more right now because we're going to go right into my demo for how to play Fetus Feud. Alright everybody, we're just about all set up and ready to start playing Fetus Feud. This game is super easy to set up. All you do is you take your whole deck of cards, you take all of the labor cards out and set them aside, and then you will distribute 5 cards to every player. Now in this game, the goal is that whenever the labor card is played, you have the most contraction cards in your hand of any other player. So essentially, after you've distributed 5 cards to everybody, you take your labor card, put it in your deck, and then you just shuffle it in and you are ready to start playing. During this game you're going to be drawing and playing new cards, hopefully getting some contraction cards. In addition, you'll be getting attack, defense, and special cards that will allow you to attack and steal cards from other players, look at other players' hands, draw new cards, and defend against various attacks as well. So I'll go over some of the options for those really quickly. If you have the instruction cards handy, these are really helpful. They essentially explain the entire game on one side, and on the other side they go over the individual types of cards that you have available. First, the attack cards. These are the cards that will actually end your turn if you play them. For example, the umbilical lasso. You steal a random card from any player. The ultrasound. You're allowed to look at an opponent's hand and steal a card. And then the overdue baby, where you make a player skip their next turn. So essentially, after you play any of these cards, whether it is an attack, a defense, or a special card, then you'll put it just face up next to the deck as a discard pile. Next up are the defense cards. Here we have the amniotic armor, which blocks any attack. Very simple. You can attack anybody on your turn, and this will enable that player to essentially say, oh, nope, didn't happen. Next up, the mood swing, my personal favorite, which means that the attack is reversed, and instead of you being attacked, the other person now has to do whatever that was. Special cards. These will generally give you cards into your hand. The Womb Raider will allow you to take a card from the discard pile, and Pregnancy Craving things will allow you to draw an extra 2 cards. Most of the descriptions on these are very, very self-explanatory, very, very simple to play. Last but not least, for the cards are the contraction cards. These are the ones that you need to have in your hand in order to win the game when somebody plays the labor card. That is the last thing that is played, and whoever plays it, everybody counts up their contractions. Whoever has the most wins. If there's a tie, then you take a look at who has the most of a specific set of the contraction cards, because they'll all have similar art, and whoever has the most of one set will end up winning the game. If there is still a tie after that, you see who has the best impression of a crying baby. And yes, I wish I was joking, but I am not. So the gameplay is extremely simple. After you have dealt out the cards, shuffled in the labor card, the person to the left of the dealer starts up. You draw a card. You may play a card if you wish. You can play as many special cards as you want, but once you play an attack card, your turn is over. And then play just moves clockwise until somebody decides to play the labor card. That's it. That's the entirety of the game. Essentially, you're just building up your hand by drawing a card at every turn and hopefully not getting attacked too much. But effectively, you're just trying to see, can I get as many contractions as possible? Maybe draw some cards from the discard. Hopefully have some defensive cards so that I don't get attacked too much. Or maybe steal cards, see who has the labor card so I can potentially force them to induce labor as well. But really, that is the entirety of the game. Very fast, very, very simple. And so we're going to move right into pros and cons as well as general conclusions. Moving right into the pros for this game, there are a couple that I wanted to mention. First and foremost, absolutely, is the balance they strike. I mentioned before with what the game is similar to, that you've got the vulgarity, but not exactly vulgar. You've got really cute, fun art that's not quite offensive, but it's just kind of weird and just like, wait, what? Type of a feeling. And last but certainly not least, you also have the puns. I love the puns. I find them really hilarious. And I think that the creators for this game did a wonderful job of striking that balance between being just outright offensive and just sort of like tongue-in-cheek, humorous weirdness, effectively. Next up on the pros that I wanted to mention is simply that this game is exactly what it seems. What I mean by that is it's not trying to make you think it's something that it isn't. This is not a strategically heavy game. It doesn't pretend to be a strategically heavy game. It has attack cards that do different things. It has specific defense cards and other reaction cards that you play at specific times, but it's not pretending to be something like Twilight Imperium or Twilight Struggle or anything like that. This is a very simple, really easy card game, and it's not trying to be anything more than that. It's meant to be goofy fun for a random night that you just need some kind of a filler game, and it works in that context very, very, very well. That said, we got to move into some of the cons, and there are a couple that I really wanted to make sure I get across. First and foremost, again, is that balance. I personally am on the side of, I think they did a good job with the balance. I'm not completely offended by it, but I'm just like, that's kind of weird. But I'm not outright not going to play the game because of how it looks and the art and the puns that they make. But I have met people who are exactly like that, and they say, wow, that is disgusting. I don't know why they would put that into a game. So it's obviously very much down to personal taste and how much you're willing to see in a game and what you want to have. So that leads me right into my second major con for this, which is simply that I wasn't really a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of games like Exploding Kittens and games like this, where it's essentially luck of the draw and what cards do you get, what do you not get, are you able to defend when you really need to, are you able to attack when it's important to, and find the cards that you need. And that's really what it boils down to. It's not a game genre that I am particularly fond of, but that said, it's a reasonably fun game in the right situation. If you have the right people, if you have the right environment, then it can be a fun sort of little time waster. You know, you've got a few people over, you're just sort of hanging out, just like, hey, you want to play this goofy little game? boom, it's perfect for that. But that said, I'm not going to be bringing it to my FLGS for regular game nights because it just doesn't fit that environment. It's a little bit too much of a potential powder keg in terms of the theme. It's a little bit too much in terms of I want to make sure that people are comfortable around us as we're playing it, all of that kind of thing. And it's kind of difficult to strike that balance with a game such as this. So it's not going to find its way into my regular FLGS box, but it will definitely have a place on my shelf as one of these quirky, weird, light games that we can play just to have some fun with it. So that said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like I said, please take a look at the campaign if you're interested in potentially backing this game. It's in the description below as soon as the Kickstarter campaign launches. But thank you very, very much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.